I think that this is an area that one could have very serious discussion about. But I wouldn't do it individually, because the Russians, obviously will look for a way to, plug off not just the UK as a nuclear power, but Germany and other countries obviously have a stake in this from their own security perspectives.
Before we move on,
that question as well.
I was about to say, before we move on from this, Shawshank, do you want to add to this? I don't know whether you.
Yeah, and I saw that Anders wanted to as well.
Yeah,
I don't want to be there.
I just wanted to say very, very quick on INF. In theory, it's a sensible topic for discussion, and it clearly is on Russia's mind. We've heard Putin talking about quite a lot about the flight times of medium-range missiles from European territory, although the flight time from eastern Ukraine is not all that different to the flight time from the Baltic, so it's arguable whether it's a substantive problem. But what I would say is that clearly this was part of the US strategy, to go into those strategic stability talks saying, well, we're not going to talk about red lines, about rolling back NATO expansion, but we will make a good faith effort to find stuff to talk about, and that's going to be INF missiles, and that's going to be confidence building measures, conventional forces, all of those kinds of things. And one of the things that worries me most profoundly about this crisis, and my reading of Russian intentions, is that at every step of the way I see Russia's leadership closing the space for diplomacy rather than grasping it. And we saw Russian diplomats come out of those talks saying, well, missile discussions are good, but it's not what we're here for. And I saw them repeating that message again and again, which to me suggests quite strongly they won't be fobbed off with these what they see as secondary topics, and that from as best I can read it, for them the diplomacy is not a serious effort at finding space for agreement, but a process designed to buy time and lay responsibility onto the other side. So the INF discussion, while a sensible one, the way it's actually proceeded reinforces my sense the Russians are not really interested at this point in having a productive, fruitful, substantive discussion on INF range missiles with verification, with all of these things. I really think they are focused on halting Ukraine's westward drift, which is why this is such a dangerous moment.
Yes, go for it.
Yes, thank you. Let me follow up on a similar line. Fiona, in the beginning here, laid out very nicely how Putin is throwing everything up in the air, and then he hopes to get something somewhere on some issue, and we don't know where geographically or on what topic. So I think that the Western strategy, I mean here primarily the US and UK strategy, I think has been just right. Expose it all, emphasize as much as possible what is going on, provide as much intelligence as reasonably can be provided, and by doing so, the West is really pushing Putin into a sort of dead end. Either he goes for everything, and then he's likely to lose, or he's not getting anything. The worst would be that he gets something. So you can say that summit with Biden, that's a big win for Putin. He shows that he's one of the three big leaders in the world, together with the US president and the Chinese president. But it's not enough. He needs something more. The big thing that Putin is talking about repeatedly is Yalta 2, or Yalta 2, you might pronounce it. And he wants to divide the West. Previously tried to break Europe out. Now he tries to break the US out and have an agreement over Europe with the US. All these things need to be stopped. And I think that the US and the UK in the strategy are doing exactly the right things. And what does Putin really accomplish? Fiona offered a number of issues, but the fundamental thing is he wants to stop democracy in his neighborhood, and in particular in Russia. He doesn't recognize Ukraine as a state, and he wants to have it abolished. But that is primarily in order to get what the Russians call since the beginning of the 20th century, the small victorious war. So the ultimate aim is to gain popularity by doing something for the nation, and at the same time getting an excuse for more repression at home. So I think that we should concentrate on these things and what he achieves in terms of specific arms agreement. I think is quite relevant. And Fiona and also Shanka emphasized here that Putin has put everything here in terms of ultimatum. This is not a question of reaching an agreement. This is not an opening for a negotiation, but this is to put the West in a corner. But when the West stands up, as it now admirably has done, then he's putting himself in a corner. So I think that we are moving in the place where we should be. And I think it's excellent that you're holding this meeting today and that you're so focused on the issues. This is in itself something that really harms Putin's strategy.
Okay. Thanks so much, Alicia.
Fiona, when it comes to our time in Ukraine, I was slightly taken aback by the fact that the Western intelligence assessments seem to differ quite significantly from those of the Ukrainians. So there was a lot of news when we were in Kiev that any invasion would come over the contact line, and there was some reference to the fact there could be an effort to directly decapitate Kiev, obviously through Belarus. Whereas obviously when we met the Ukrainians, it was very much the contact line is far too difficult, there is far too much defence infrastructure, that is something that's not going to be crossed. It will either be, yes, a direct decapitation of Kiev, or more likely through the south or through other vulnerable parts of their borders. How likely do you think each of those scenarios are, and what do you think Putin is looking at specifically?
Well, I mean, Putin's clearly trying to keep us guessing because he's given himself a lot of options. I mean, there's also air defence, or rather, opposite of defence, offence, which could also be used. And if you look at what they did in Georgia in 2008, which is a long time ago, it was more of a sort of a set-piece World War II, tanks through the Rocky Tunnel, plus then, use of aircraft. They've obviously adapted a lot since then. The use of covert operatives, different forces, cyber attacks. We've seen obviously the deployment of vessels from the Baltic fleet coming around into the Black Sea with amphibious landing capabilities. So there's also the sea attacks. One could be very concerned about, for example, they've already done this to most rather good effect of the Sea of Azov, blocking off, completely the Sea of Azov to any outside shipping, as well as then taking Mariupol and the Ukrainian ports, threatening Odessa, and the hope being that by ever means that they're deployed, that there would be a squeeze put on Kiev. I think we have to also bear in mind the intelligence, obviously, that was deployed to rather good effect by the UK government about efforts to literally decapitate the Ukrainian government by overthrowing or removing Zelensky and find a replacement. We've seen that happen, through triggers in other countries around the Soviet Russian periphery. So, we shouldn't rule things like this out either. I am a little bit mystified, but I think, again, Anders may have some insight into this, given the work that he's done very closely with the Ukrainian government, as to, Zelensky's efforts right now to basically pick fights with various oligarchs and previous President Poroshenko, which also suggests there's quite a lot of machinations going on inside of Ukrainian political circles, which Putin and the Kremlin could try to take advantage of. We saw them do that in Georgia, for example, as well as attempt this in Armenia. Another factor again to bear in mind is, as I said before, is just the variety of covert operations that they have. And one thing, obviously, that President Zelensky is very worried about is the market effect. I think, part of the reason that we're getting a difference of interpretation there is the crushing effect on the Ukrainian economy by the threat of war and all of the pressure that Russia is applying. And perhaps that's also being factored in by the Kremlin and by Putin as a way of, getting Zelensky pushed to the margins. So there's a lot of dynamic factors in Ukraine that the Russians can use. So I think in some respects, a bit risky for us to focus in on one issue. Obviously, the United States government, based on the intelligence that they have, has laid out the maximal possible invasion that that is feasible. But there are many different other ways that Russia can deploy the forces that it's arranged, and that's of course the difficulty that we have.
I don't know, Mr. Anders, if you'd like to comment on that at all.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to pick up on 2 points. One, what Fiona mentioned, the Ukrainian politics are very divided. And President Zelensky is now trying to prosecute former President Poroshenko, his main political rival, for high treason. I saw Poroshenko last in October, and they said that there were then 129 criminal cases opened against him. President Zelensky completely controls the prosecutor general. So this is political